Bonjour Marcelo, est-ce que la rencontre est supposée d'être aujourd'hui, comme en ce moment, ou demain pendant le cours?
I am in, finally, Marcelo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Oh,
We're
I'm
glad you
excited
made
to be
it.
here. I'm so excited to be here. All right. So I'm just going to jump right in since we've already wasted a half hour. And this is a long class, I know, but I'm just grateful to be here. My name is Michelle Penny. I am part of Treaty 4 of the Soto Nation. Yellow Quill's my reserve. And I'm a 60s scooper. And that's my basic history. What I do today is I wear many hats. My main hat, well, I can't even say my main hat because every hat I wear actually kind of goes into one huge hat. I sit on a national level, a national committee called Writing Relations. And this is a women-led organization. It's actually part of Cowie, which is a city initiative of all women here in Ottawa. And we have offshoots throughout the country. So we have the Western Hub, we have the Central Hub, we have the Eastern Hub, and we have a Quebec Hub. And we're slowly trying to grow it. So we have one in Winnipeg, Regina, Edmonton. We have one in Ottawa, Toronto, Hamilton, Quebec, and I'm not quite sure whereabouts in Quebec, but Quebec's covered, and then all through the East. So there's a lot of people working on this called Writing Relations. So I myself have other skills that I like to incorporate within my repertoire of things because I think it's very boring just listening to somebody talk, right? So I like to sing, I like to tell stories, and this is a season to tell stories. This is a season to explain who you are in a good way so that everybody can understand in a way that they don't have to write down notes. They can remember because I'm being verbal enough and I'm going to give you pictures, okay? So with that, I think I'll start with the proper formality. I am on unceded Algonquin land. As you all are, I'll assume that you're all in Ottawa, so you are too. And unceded means they never gave it up. So we can talk later about the issue that's going on with the Algonquin people. However, I'm not Algonquin, so I have no right to have an opinion, really. I'm a visitor also. I come to you with a First Nations lens. There's no two ways about it. I can't think any other way. But I don't come to you with Algonquin opinions, Mohawk opinions, or anything like that. And I just want to make that clear. I can't talk upon those nations. I'm of the Soto Nation, which is a branch off the Ojibwe, first cousins to the Cree, and we belong to the same language line as the Algonquin. So it's a Anishinaabe language. No, I do not have my traditional language as I'm part of the 60 scoop. But we'll get to that. I'd like to open up with a song. If you guys would like to just sit back and relax, we'll just hear a quick little song. Now, I had a drum, but unfortunately my drum got need of repairs. So a few years ago, I made this shaker, and it's Haudenosaunee style. And no, it's not appropriation because it was a Haudenosaunee person a Mohawk person that actually gave me the teachings. And I've been blessed to be adopted into 3 Haudenosaunee families throughout my lifetime. So I really have my name on it, which is Crimson Thunder. My brother actually went and did the wood burning and stuff. And you'll get to meet them eventually. So the song I'm going to open up with is because I'm very happy right now. I'm so happy to be sitting in this class, getting in. And I'm looking at the sun. And the problem with this time of the year is people are thinking, are we ever going to be free? And people fall into the doldrums because they really, really don't like the darkness. They don't like this time. And I can explain why they don't like this time later on. But for now, let's celebrate the fact that we do have a little bit of sun happening and that we can celebrate we have sun inside. And that sun inside is what's supposed to actually hold you during this season. And the sun comes out every once in a while to remind you to pull from the sun that you have within you. And that's the light. That's your energy. That's your power. So anyways, I'm going to sing the song finally. Yahweh, 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 Gagizi, Gagini, Ganani, Manesewe, Yahweh, 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 Gagizi, Gagini, Ganani, Manesewe, Yahweh, 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 Gagizi, Gagini, Ganani, Manesewe, Yahweh, 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 Gagizi, Gagini, Ganani, Manes, Sewe, Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Oh, miigwech. I say miigwech to the song. I'm not saying to you guys to applaud or anything like that. I'm not going to be able to hear it anyways because you're all muted, so no need to applaud. But if you wanted to boogie to that song, that was A-okay too. That was actually just a song to celebrate our beautiful sun that is out today. And really what the sun does is a lot. You can't have sun you can't survive without the sun. The other thing that you can't survive with is without water. And I just want to acknowledge the water, whether it be frozen, whether it be flowing freely. We need to acknowledge it because that is our source and that's what's going to keep us alive. So anyways, I'm going to start now with a couple of stories. And in my introduction, I explained to you that I was part of the 60 Scoop. So that 60 Scoop actually came after residential school. Now I'm going to assume you guys have heard about residential school. Okay. I'm going to assume that somebody's come in and explained the horrors of residential school. Okay, maybe they haven't, but hopefully somebody will come in and be able to explain their version of horror schools, or I mean residential schools, sorry. Maybe that was a slip of the tongue, maybe it wasn't, I'm not sure. But anyways, my mother actually was a residential school, well, not quite survivor because she's dead, but she did survive residential school, and she gave birth to 4 kids. And one day my mother got taken to the hospital, and it was a relative that was taking care of all 4 of us, and I was just a baby. I wasn't very old. And my mother went to the hospital because she was dying of cancer. And while she was in the hospital, I had my Kokom, which is my grandmother, and I'll refer to her as my grandmother, or my Kokom as opposed to grandmother. And I had my auntie, they were in the hospital with her. And one of her last requests was to see her children one last time, all 4 of us. And we had already been adopted out. So my mother died alone in a hospital without being able to say goodbye to her children. And that hurts me. It hurts me because I have no memory of my mother. I have no pictures because residential school happened, and having cameras wasn't a top priority. And those that did have the gift of having a camera would have the pictures taken. And a lot of times, because they take the pictures and hand them over to the matriarch or the head of the family, and they would hold these pictures for the family. Well, my Kokom, she had a fire in her house, and all the pictures that she held burned. And so I've never even had the pleasure of seeing a picture of my mother. However, I have had the pleasure of knowing my 2 older sisters and my brother, who is adopted with me. And that's kind of like what it was like to be adopted. I don't want to give a sad tale. I'm way beyond people feeling sorry for me, because I don't want people feeling sorry for me. But I do want you to understand the colonization that I lived through. And this is going to be the very first reading of a poem that I wrote to try to explain to you my feelings, okay? And you don't have to write a test later and say, what was the author thinking? I absolutely hated that in university when it came to our English classes. How the hell do I know? I wasn't there. Well, I'm here now, and this is the first time you guys are going to hear it. And if you want to know what I'm thinking, ask, please. And if you have questions, use the chat. If you're, I'll get to them. I'll take a look at them while I'm talking, and I'll be more than happy to answer. So right now, I'm just going to read a poem that I wrote and explaining about 60 scoop babies. Look at those poor Indian babies. Poor, poor, poor. Look at how they need us, those poor Indian babies. Let's find one, maybe 2. 'Tis time to teach them our way. Through hard work and obeying our ways, we can teach them the real world, those poor Indian babies. They don't jump when we ask. Ungrateful they are. Spare the rod, spoil the child. They will learn our way, those poor Indian babies. Those marks in school aren't good enough. You're stupid and lazy and won't add up to much. You'll be lucky to find anyone that wants you. Now smarten up. We know what you want to do. Those poor Indian babies. You are worse than the person across the street. You can't do this, you can't do that. But you will do this. You will not talk about anything in this house. You will not, you will. We saved you, those poor Indian babies. They grow and don't show gratitude. Who cares there were no hugs? Who cares there was no voice? Who cares there was no privacy? Who cares no respect was shown to them? They grow and don't show gratitude. Those poor Indian babies. The past still haunts me on certain days. Today, the mother I have never seen and have no memory that comes to mind. I wouldn't have minded being poor. I wouldn't have minded learning how to survive with family I was born to. I did mind being alone every day, waiting to leave that place of falseness. In the eye of my childhood, they tried to make me believe I was one of them. When I left and all those doors closed in my face, I began to understand those poor Indian babies. So I grew up in a military-based house. I had an older brother that was their son. My brother and I were adopted together. They expected university from my brother, and they thought you'd be lucky if you get out of high school to me. Because I wasn't really a good rule follower, and I still am not to this day. And it's good. All those things that they said was wrong, or I shouldn't do, or I should just conform, pays off today, because I get to sit here in this class and tell you how it pays off. So I'm just going to leave that part of the 60s scoop. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm not here, like I said, for you to feel sorry or anything like that. I'm far from feeling sorry for myself. From being adopted, it did give me a different perspective, though, when I went and returned back to my world, back to my peoples. You see, in the white world, I was always accused of stuff I never even did. But they believed I was going to do that, so they would deny things before I even did that because they thought of it. And I never understood that way of thinking, but that was a lot of my upbringing. So I grew up very confused. And of course, I didn't know who I was because I was the only First Nations person. My brother and I were the only First Nations person in the neighborhood. And it was a whole military area. It was a suburb. And houses were for sale every 3 years because we weren't very far from Trenton Air Base, and I grew up near Trenton Air Base in redneck country of all places. But I really couldn't wait to get out of Belleville. I really could not wait, and I was so wanting badly to get out of Belleville that I decided to meet a guy, not fall in love, pretend I was in love, and run off out east and get married. I think I was 18, 19, I can't even remember. It lasted 3 years, and that was my stint with the institution of marriage. So don't ask me for relationship advice because I don't have any. I like being single, actually, and I'm 56 now, and I spent a lot of my years in pain and not knowing who I was, in pain and not knowing my roots or where I belonged, because I found out that I didn't belong in the white world. I found out I didn't like the white world and their rules and their necessary work being from 9 till 5 and the lack of flexibility of stuff like that. But I spent a lot of years kind of floating around, not knowing really what I wanted to do with my life and not knowing really what direction I was going to go through. But I always knew that even though I was here in Belleville, Ontario, my place would be ending up back out west because I knew that's where I came from. And I did that trek. I did that trek when I was about 24 years old, and I went back to my birth family. And it was through social services, social services here in Ottawa, not in Ottawa, in London, I guess, Ontario, that actually was able to connect me to the worker that could connect me to my family. And it was really easy after they realized my parents had passed away, but I have aunties and uncles, and I have an auntie that's like 3 years older than me. Yeah, older than me. So like families are definitely different in First Nations territories. So anyways, I go back to the family and I'm meeting my Kokom, my grandmother, for the very first time. And I'm with my aunt for the very first time, my auntie and my uncle and my little cousins. And this is my very first reunion. And I'm so nervous because I'm only 24 years old and I'm white. I'm a white Indian, grew up with a white world with white goals and white dreams and all the old kit and caboodle. And I end up meeting them for the first time, and my Kokom comes over and she kisses me. And she kisses me on both sides of the cheek and she gives me a hug. And she's looking behind me and she's looking around me and everything. And I'm looking a little confused. And finally I said, okay, why is she looking behind me? And my auntie says, well, she wants to know where your kids are. I said, my kids? I don't have kids. And the first thing she says, well, what kind of Indian are you? That was the first thing. Very first time meeting my family. They wanted to know why I didn't have kids at 24 years of age. And I told them I heard of birth control. I didn't go over well either. So at 27, I had my first child, but I was in university at the time and I decided I was going to do something. I had no idea what I was going to do. So in my infinite wisdom and the fact that school really sucked to begin with and the fact that I had to continue going to school in order to get forward was even worse, right? So I decided to take Indian studies. And in that Indian studies, for me, it worked. That's what I consider Indian studies. It was about me. It was about learning everything that I never had when I was growing up. It was learning how to be an advocate in such a way that you can damage people, which is your first year of Indian studies, to the third year where you learn the middle ground, to the fourth year where maybe there's a little bit of balance when you walk out and you realize your history wasn't perfect, but neither is your future. You're the one that's going to have to choose that. And I did. I decided to have kids. And I have 2 of them. And I'm blessed with them. And I'm thankful for them. But my youngest one was special needs.